what's going on, everyone? This is Ivan with Limitless Trading Group. Hope you guys had a green day. Let's talk about MBOT, the stock that the biggest percentage gainer today, which is up 300% after hours. Now, based on my opinion, I think this was a highly manipulated stock from the beginning, and you guys can see this pattern where it upticks, accumulates, and then pushes up again, and it downticks, sort of to trap short sellers and then squeezes them out. You can see this pattern build up over and over and over again every single time. Now, for the most part, I really didn't trade this one to the upside that much. My first entry as a long position was at 452, and I ended up selling at 482, which it was around this area right here. And then after that, I really didn't trade it. I wasn't really interested. I didn't really find any reason for this stock to be up this much. I think it's just because it's a really low float, and you guys can sort of check here. Let's check the float here. It's the float is 1.85. The shares outstanding is 2.79. Now, this is FinViz. FinViz is most of the time is not really accurate. So what I like to do for my shares outstanding, I like to double check on the filings. So you go to the latest filing on here, whether it's the 10Q or 10K, and right at the bottom here on the first page, you're going to see the um, the latest shares outstanding, which you can see it's 2.975 as of November 13, 2018. Now, if this is sort of around the same um, area of FinViz, you can almost be certain that the float is relatively the same as well. So these two numbers match up with the filings. So I basically that's how I check the shares outstanding. Now, as far as this company here, I basically also check and see if there's any dilutive things going on in this company, and where you can find this is on the prospectus and registrations here. Typically, I look for the S1s, the S8 also, but we're going to talk about this later on. The S1s is basically the initial registration for new securities, and you can see that they initiated this one at on 11/8/2018. But typically, when you see a closing offering, you see the 424 B5 right after, and there isn't any, which means it's still active. And even on 11/19, they amended it. That's what the little A stands for. They amended it. Typically, an amendment happens when they want to add some more units, or maybe they made an error into this filing. In this particular case, they actually increased the amount of shares that they were going to offer, and they did it over and over again. So let's take a look at the latest one, which it was on the 31st of December. If you scroll down here, you can check and see all the units and everything that they're willing to offer on this offering. This is the total amount that they're looking to raise, about 46.7 million. These are the fees right here. We're not really going to go too much into that. You can go down here, check to see roughly around how many units or common stocks they're going to offer. This is up to 6 million, and so that's a pretty hefty one, right? But if the float is 1.8 plus 6 million, it's still considered a relatively low float. Now, another way to check and see if this thing's really active still, you can check down here, scroll down here, it says public offering price. This should be filled once it's completed and once it has been announced. So when you see this blink right here, that means it's still active. Now, one thing that's really important is to sort of scroll and kind of skim right through this area right here. I like to sort of read this statement right here. It says our common stock is listed on the NASDAQ Capital Market under the ticker MBOT. On December 24, 2018, the closing price of our common stock on the NASDAQ Capital Market was 166. So when they did file this with the SEC, their price was at 166. It's really important to sort of notate that because that has the potential. I mean, think about it. This stock is trading at $10 right now, and when they sort of filed for the offering, it was trading at 166. It's very, very important. Now, it's since it's still active, I do think that they're going to use this this sort of volume because they need a lot of volume to sort of put the offering out there, right? Now, another thing that I really do look at, let's go back to the 10Q here. If you scroll down here, I kind of want to know where this company stands. Is this company creating enough revenue to sustain themselves for at least next quarter or maybe the next year or so, right? So if you scroll all the way down here, there's a whole bunch of numbers. I'm not going to get really too much into that. But here on the risk factors, you can see it says, to date, the company has not generated revenues from its operations, which is really, really important. Also, um, it's important the fact that this company has really no cash, and this is why they're doing the offering, to bring in some cash. A lot of people don't understand this, and what I want to do is sort of prevent people from holding overnight because there's such a higher risk, especially when these forms are out there in public for people to know. And I'm just trying to raise awareness on what's actually going on within the companies. Now, as you read further, it says their cash and cash equivalent balance of approximately 6,673, which managed to believe it's sufficient enough to fund operations for the next 12 months. Um, Down here, I really don't understand this because this is a little bit of cash, and I don't understand it. What are their expenses? And I'm not really gonna go on the numbers up here. Um, but let's go down here. Where does it say? Certainties will be a little raise. Okay, so in this area it says the company's ability to raise additional capital in the equity and debt markets is dependent on the number of factors, including but not limited to the market demand for the company's stock. So what they're talking about, the demand, is the volatility of the price action. And let's go on what happened previous day. So you see there's really no demand for this stock right here. Nobody was buying, nobody was selling. It's such a low volume. If we go here on the daily and look on the volume here, it did 66,000 shares traded previously before this big run, and then today it did 37.4 million shares traded. So that's a massive volume increase there. And I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow they release some type of offering or that offering that's on file in pre-market or something like that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's there for a reason. And if I were them, I'll probably do it too. Take advantage of this high volatility, which is what they're talking about in the filings. And you can see it here, the market demand for the company stock, which itself is subject to the number of development and business risks and uncertainties. Uh, let's see, there was one paragraph here that talks about the company's plan. The company's plan to continue to fund its current operations as well as other development activities related to additional product candidates through future in what is it issuances of either debt and or equity securities and possibly additional grants from Israel Innovation. Now, what does that basically mean? It's either they're going to get more in debt, okay, or they're going to raise more in equity securities, which it means offerings, or they do have a third option, which is I haven't really looked into this one, Israel Innovation Authorities or Authority. Really haven't looked into these guys, but doesn't look good. If a company is not creating revenue and most of their cash is coming from the market, and you can see here throughout its life, they've been doing a lot of reverse stock splits, offerings, and so on and so forth. You can see here, I mean, this stock's just been diluting over and over and over again from every single pop that it creates. It's not that this stock was trading at 32,000 or whatever, 324,000 per share. No, it means that they keep doing reverse stock splits after reverse stock splits, and once the float gets really really tiny, it's very easy to manipulate, right? So it pushes the price action up with very little volume, and then once price action is really high, to a certain extent, maybe 300% or so, which is today, then they announce the offering, which it adds those shares into the float. But since the float is really tiny, you know, it's it's still considered a relatively low float. After this offering that is out, let's say they do the 6 million shares, which is on the offering, plus 1.8, I mean, that's right around 8 million, the 6 point something million that they have in the offering plus the 1.8. I mean, that's relatively about 8 million, and 8 million is still a very, very tiny float. So you guys can see it's a constant cycle doing reverse stock splits, okay, when the stock price is extremely, extremely low, under a dollar. And once they do the reverse stock splits, they basically compile it. Typically it's like a 10 to 1 or 10 to 15, so for every 10 shares turns into one, makes it seem that the price is actually uh, a larger amount, but in reality it's just not. And after that, they have enough cushion to say, okay, now that the stock price is at $10, I'm going to announce an offering for a discounted price of, like, let's say, I don't know, let's say 650, right? And then the stock price just drops significantly all the way to 650. And once again, they have enough cash for a couple of quarters, and then later on, once they run out of cash, they're going to dilute once again. It's just the life of a penny stock. Well, most of the penny stocks do this, and you can tell by, if you scroll all the way back to the charts here, you can see that if it has a huge number just like this, that just means that it has gone through multiple reverse stock splits plus offerings. And a way to double check that, you can just go to the filings, and you can go to this area right here, and throughout its life, sure enough, a lot of 424B5s. You can see 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Oh my god, just a whole bunch. Now if you guys have any questions, just feel free to message me on Discord or Facebook. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and hopefully we see some weakness on this one. I'm not going to try and short it, um, you know, as soon as market opens or anything like that. I'm going to try and find weakness, even though the filings, the fundamentals say something, say that it's very weak and it's bound to basically crash. I'm not going to short it, because even though the fundamentals are there for some downside, the technical analysis say otherwise. So always technical analysis goes first, fundamentals follow. Always remember that. The reason why, it's because a lot of traders out there do not trade off of fundamentals. So they don't even know what filings are. They have no idea. It's a completely different language to them. So what they do is they just buy and sell, buy and sell. And that's why I say technical analysis comes first, fundamental second. Create a game plan, a solid game plan. Make sure you protect yourself. If you're short, I took a short. What was it like? I don't know, somewhere of 560s or something like that, somewhere around here. And I covered very quickly. I wasn't willing to hold it. I mean, we've seen these type of moves over and over and over again. Last year, I mean, we had one that went up 1,000%. So knowing the possibilities of things like this happening, you shouldn't take a short position without a plan and an actual stop loss, whether it's just a mental stop loss or a hard stop loss. Always have something in place to protect yourself because this can happen. I mean, countless of accounts were blown up today just on a single trade, and it's because they refuse to be wrong or accept that they're wrong. Just accept the fact that you're wrong, move on, and then catch it at a better price. You know, there's always opportunities out there. If you're only willing to lose $100, do not take a long position, or do not take a position that's that's bigger than what you're willing to lose on a single trade. Always remember that, and I keep saying that over and over and over again until you guys really understand what's actually going on. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to, you know, tag me on Discord or on Facebook. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.